With Dragon Quest XII Flames of Fate on the horizon, the 40th anniversary celebration officially kicking off, and Dragon Quest Day fast approaching, we thought it was the perfect time to look back at everything that makes this series special and give a quick overview of the series for newcomers and hardcore fans alike to prep us all for Dragon Quest XII. So we put together 112 things you should know, from general info about the world and story to deep cut nuggets of lore you may not be aware of yet. So with that all said, let's dive into 112 things you should know about Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest came into existence in 1985 when the four godfathers of the franchise, Yuji Horii, Koichi Nakamura, the late Akira Toriyama, and Koichi Sugiyama, were brought together under the guidance of Yukinobu Chida and Enix, and began development of the game for a 1986 release. And while not initially a huge success, the game's popularity grew through good press and word of mouth. And before the end of 1990, 4 Dragon Quest games were already released back-to-back with incredibly tight production deadlines and challenges. But the popularity of the series grew incredibly fast in this period, and it was already a national phenomenon across Japan. Within this very short period of time, Enix would already commission several spin-off mangas and animes, and also a few light novels. These expanded stories outside of the mainline games were mostly either slight remixes of the elements from the games or considered separate worlds. But 2 series, The Emblem of Roto, now Mark of Erdrick in English, and The Legend of Rubus were actually confirmed as official canon at the time, and as far as I know, they still hold that distinction. And if you'd like to learn more about the Legend of Rubus series, we are hard at work on translating the full story so we can cover it for you soon, so be sure to subscribe to not miss that. The world of Dragon Quest can be very confusing, and that's because the series isn't generally concerned with interconnecting stories and is more focused on making sure each individual title can stand on its own and work as a good starting point for newcomers. So if you're looking to get into the series and are intimidated by its size, have no fear. Just pick up whichever one looks most interesting to you and jump right in. Despite this, there is some amount of logic to the overarching Dragon Quest world, and recent remakes are adding small additional threads to help connect the games more and more. Rather than one long splintering timeline like The Legend of Zelda, the Dragon Quest stories take place across entirely different but interlinked worlds, with some more closely connected and others far off on their own. The best way to think of it, I found, is something like the 9 realms of Norse mythology. The worlds are separate, but connect with each other in sometimes strange and inconsistent ways. But they're all part of one larger cosmos, and have interconnected threads like the Yggdrasil tree that seem to appear in all of them. So you might see faces appearing in worlds you don't expect, or certain elements and themes repeating in soft echoes in different stories. Dragon Quest was one of the very first console RPGs. It was inspired by classic PC RPG titles like Ultima and Wizardry, but was the first to bring the genre to the home console market, and inspired the initial boom of JRPGs in Japan. While inspiring the genre boom, it may also have had a direct impact on Shigeru Miyamoto, shifting his focus for the series of Legend of Zelda away from a growing RPG focus and towards its more puzzle-solving action-adventure style from Link to the Past on, as the original Dragon Quest actually beat out Zelda 1 and 2 for Famitsu's inaugural Game of the Year award, and was seen as a competitor for many years. Miyamoto and Horii were interviewed together near the release of Dragon Quest IV, and what Miyamoto described at the time as the version of Zelda 3 that they had completed had a 3-party system and more RPG elements building on ideas from Zelda 2. But the game would stay in development for another 2 years after this interview, and ultimately come out very different as the Link to the Past we know today. The original Dragon Quest was advertised in a very unconventional way, because they weren't entirely sure how to sell an RPG to the action-focused home console audience. They opted to focus on the talent behind the game to hype it, showing the names of the core creators in the original commercials. And to this day, every Dragon Quest game still opens in this same fashion. The first 3 Dragon Quest games were set in the same world for the most part, and in the second game, you play as distant descendants of the original hero. Players then assumed something similar would be true of 3 until near the end, when it was revealed that you were Erdrick, or Roto in Japan, the often mentioned hero of legend in Dragon Quest 1 and 2. a reveal which really blew people away at the time. From then on, the story moved away from the world of Alfgard, and Hori became much more interested in one-off stories. Though the second trilogy of games also technically take place in the same world as each other, though at different times, and became known as the Zenithian trilogy. Though the connections here are not as important or self-evident as the Urgic trilogy. So each game still feels like a unique one-off journey, just with similar themes and history. From here, each game was much more self-contained, with only small nods or connections to other games in the series for the longest time. It really wouldn't be until 11, which is most likely the earliest in chronology, that the series connections would become prominent again, with the ending scenes revealing the heroes of the Urgic trilogy were likely descendants of characters in 11. Coincidentally, this was also a clever tease that the Urgic trilogy would be receiving a remake soon. But did you know there's another important Urgic or Roto not found in the game? In the Legend of Rubis series, the story takes place far before Rubis created Alfgard or any other world, when she was not yet a goddess and lived in another realm as a fire spirit. Near the end of that series, Rubis' main love interest, Dialt, is revealed to be named Roto, and is the beginning of the Roto bloodline. He also has a connection to the god bird Raimiel. Rubis is also likely the creator of both Alfgard and the world of the Zenithian trilogy, though everything isn't 100% clear yet and will likely be expanded upon in an upcoming Zenithian trilogy remake. The world of Dragon Quest IX and X were recently confirmed to be connected in later expansions of the Dragon Quest X main story, though this wasn't known for quite a while. Dragon Quest XII is rumored to also be connected to 9 and 10, or the Celestian timeline, though these rumors have not been verified. But there actually is a good reason to think there may be something to this element at least. Dragon Quest XII has been in development for over 5 years at this point, and it wasn't revealed that 9 and 10 were connected until well into development. If the rumors end up being true, or at least partially true, the connection of 9 and 10 may have been an intentional development meant to set the stage for 12 in order to further flesh out the game's connections. So while this is still just speculation, there has been a keen focus in the Dragon Quest development team to strengthen the world lore and connections between games ever since the release of 11. And 11 still holds many mysteries that have yet to be explained. Perhaps 11 was a brief deviation to begin a much longer process that would ultimately culminate in 12. Time will tell. We're going to dive deeper into some of the hidden lore and ideas in Dragon Quest near the end of the video, but for now, let's cover more basic info you might want to know about the series and world. The mascot of the series is the iconic slime created by Akira Toriyama for the original game. There are more than 120 slime variations across the series to date, with more being released in almost every single title. The famous metal slimes may actually hold a key bit of lore within their bodies, with the slime globules made from their bodies seeming to have a strong connection to the 3 legendary metals of the Dragon Quest world: Mithril, Zenithium, and Orichalcum, themselves seeming to be interrelated and possibly variants of the same core element. I hear there might be a video on this in the works from another content creator in the DQ sphere, and we'll definitely be sharing it if that manifests. Akira Toriyama worked on designs for Dragon Quest XII before his untimely passing. It would be the last title in the series he worked on, but his work may continue on past that, as there are a lot of designs he submitted for past games which went unused. The King Slime is made up of 8 regular slimes fusing. The Slime Knight is an odd monster in the series, with many players wondering who receives the death blow at the end of a battle. While some may think it's the Knight Rider who dies and the slime simply flees, in multiple games it's been confirmed that both die together, with the most recent title explaining that their bond is so tight that if one dies, the other will immediately die with it. Kind of sad when you think about it. But very strangely, did you know that the Metal Slime Knight is not riding an actual metal slime? Or at least this is implied by the fact that defeating a Metal Slime Knight does not grant you the typical large experience reward of a metal slime. So what exactly is this slime then, and why is its mouth green? The second biggest monster mascot of the series is the Draki, with other highly recognizable mascots including the Saber Cat, Hammerhood, Slime Knight, and Green Dragon. And if you want to know more about the monsters, check out our All About Monster series, which currently includes slimes, metal slimes, and drakies. And don't forget to tell us which monsters you'd like to see us cover next. The creators of the game wanted Dragon Quest to be a little different. A game where you would be excited to run into monsters despite the risk. They wanted the designs to be interesting and unique, so you'd be eagerly anticipating what kind of monster would be around the next corner. This great creature design philosophy led directly to the popularity of the spin-off series Dragon Quest Monsters. Speaking of spin-offs, did you know there are more than 20 Dragon Quest spin-off titles, including the Builder series, the Torneko series, the Monster series, the Slime Mori Mori series, the Hero series, as well as Swords, Kenshin, and a slew of mobile games. Dragon Quest has a sad history of mobile games that were really fun but didn't last long. And the latest game is the soon arriving Dragon Quest Smash Bros, which so far has a lot going for it, so hopefully this one can break the short lifespan curse. One of the longest running DQ mobile games in Japan is a Pokemon Go style game called Dragon Quest Walk. Dragon Quest characters have also appeared alongside Mario characters in Smash Bros. Ultimate, but did you know that wasn't the first time we saw the characters together? We also saw them in North America in Fortune Street and Mario Sport Mix, as well as the original Itadaki Street DS in Japan. There was also a much earlier crossover between Nintendo characters and Dragon Quest characters all the way back in Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, where you could find a grave for the legendary hero, though this reference was removed in localization. Dragon Quest also had a big impact on the Yakuza franchise, with light references throughout the series and a full side quest referencing the massive phenomenon surrounding Dragon Quest III's release in Japan in Yakuza 0. This would evolve into a large pseudo crossover in Yakuza Like a Dragon, where the main character and the way he interacts with the world being heavily influenced by his favorite series from childhood, Dragon Quest. And Yakuza creator Toshihiro Nagoshi would even get direct permission from Dragon Quest creator Yuji Horii, who was really impressed with the game and the way it used Dragon Quest staples in a more mature game, and it may have influenced his desire to have Dragon Quest XII incorporate a more mature tone. Did you know that despite only having 3 English-translated Dragon Quest manga series, Dragon Quest Monsters Plus, The Adventure of Dai, and the newly translated Mark of Erdrick, Dragon Quest has dozens of mangas in Japan, and even 2 biographical mangas, a brand new educational manga retelling the life of creator Yuji Horii, and The Road to Dragon Quest, a dramatized biographical manga retelling the development of Dragon Quest I. And if you want to know more about that one, we've done a full 2-part recap of the entire manga. There are also several anime adaptations, including the original Adventure of Dai and a recent remake, the amazing Legend of the Hero Abel series, which is my favorite, and an OVA for the Mark of Erdrick or Emblem of Roto series set between early chapters of the manga. Pechi has a fantastic video on that one if you're interested. And there is also a somewhat divisive but still great Dragon Quest feature film, Your Story, which is an adaptation of the story of Dragon Quest V. And one of the directors of the film is actually award-winning director of Godzilla Minus One, Takashi Yamazaki. Crazy, right? But beyond that, there are a few other hidden gems you could consider adaptations, which include the wonderful and bizarre Dragon Quest Fantasia, an orchestral performance with full video segments telling the journey of a hero and his party that blends elements from the first 3 games, several ballet adaptations, and a great ad campaign from the DS remake era, which spanned the globe and featured live-action versions of most of the characters from those remakes. Oh, and I almost forgot another interesting tidbit. Did you know that The Legend of the Hero Abel was actually partially adapted as a Saturday morning cartoon under the name Dragon Warrior, though only the first 13 episodes were ever localized? There was also a short slime OVA in Japan that I watched a while back, where an entire village gets flooded and the slime and another character have to save the day. But I can't for the life of me remember what it's called, and I can't find it again anywhere. So if you know what I'm talking about, please drop a comment and I'll add it to the pinned comment on this video. Did you know there was also a short romantic comedy show in Japan about someone obsessed with Dragon Quest X and their roommate? You may or may not have heard about Dragon Quest before this video, but did you know that it's considered Japan's national video game to this day because of just how popular and well known it is? You can even spend a day in the Dragon Quest world at Dragon Quest Island, which is a very unique theme park that is more like a Renaissance festival than like, say, Disneyland. But its coolest and unique feature is you get to interact with the entire world like you're a character in the Dragon Quest game, a real-life RPG park. But that's not the only place you can get immersed in Dragon Quest in Japan. There's a Dragon Quest themed restaurant as well that specializes in Dragon Quest dishes. You can also get immersed in an orchestral performance of Dragon Quest music, an experience that's been ongoing since the very first game's release. And Dragon Quest loves collaborations in Japan, regularly doing special limited releases with clothing and luxury brands, and they have a long history of collaborations with McDonald's. And Pechi is the definitive expert on all things Dragon Quest McDonald's, and you can find his full videos on that topic here, and in the description. Getting more or less immersed in the DQ world, depending on your perspective, has also been possible on a few occasions through limited time VR experiences. And there's a new one coming up again for the 40th anniversary. There's also a small reference to Dragon Quest, or more specifically, the original Dragon Warrior localization, in the episode of Adventure Time titled The Diary. You can see TV playing a game that looks like Dragon Quest and features the same random encounter screen animation. The Dragon Quest theme was also used in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics opening ceremony. Here's a clip of it.
The great moment has arrived. They have traveled from all corners of the earth and have spent a lifetime training for this moment. Please welcome the athletes of the games of the 32nd Olympiad.
さあ皆様、いよいよ待ちに待った瞬間です。この日のために人生をかけてトレーニングに励んできた選手たちが世界中から集まりました。第32回オリンピック競技大会に出場する選手の皆さんです。どうぞ盛大な拍手でお迎えください。
Well, we're just about halfway through the list, so maybe it's time to actually talk about the heroes of the series. But don't forget to like and subscribe if you're liking this DQ content and want to see more of it here on YouTube. And let us know your own Dragon Quest facts that we didn't cover here in the comments below. Alright, hero time. The hero of Dragon Quest I is Aleph, and he is the only hero in the series to battle solo through his entire adventure. He is also the hero with the most inconsistent appearances, with several variations to his design over the years, but his characterization has always remained consistent. Dragon Quest II is the only game with multiple characters holding the title of the main hero, as the game has you play as 3 cousins, all descendants of Aleph, as they work to protect their kingdoms. The hero of Dragon Quest III is Erdrick, or Eris in Japan, and is the most well-known hero of the entire franchise. The hero of Dragon Quest IV was unique because it was the only one to receive an entirely unique female design rather than the exact same clothes and look as the male hero. For that reason, I like to consider 4 the series' only canonical female hero to date, though that's just headcanon. The hero of Dragon Quest V, Abel, isn't actually the hero of that game, and it's the only game in the mainline series where you are 100% not the destined hero. I won't spoil who it is in case you want to play it, but 5 is definitely memorable for its story and how you play such an important role in saving the world but aren't the hero yourself. The hero of 6, Rek, almost had a very different design, featuring red hair and looking even more like 90s Dragon Ball. This design was later retooled and used as everyone's favorite monster master, Terry. The hero of Dragon Quest VII, Oster, or Eris, is the only hero in Dragon Quest to time travel from one womb to another. No, really. At first, I thought this was an exaggeration, but I have been assured by several very passionate fans that the game's various references to your dual parentage can only be explained by you growing first in your mother's womb and then being teleported across time and into your pseudo-adoptive mother's womb. And it is directly stated that you were born very premature. A canon fact I absolutely hate to think about. From the hero of Dragon Quest VIII onward, there are no longer official names given to the heroes, so they are just referred to as 8, 9, 10, and 11 respectively. 8 is also the only hero who begins the game with party members already with him. The hero of Dragon Quest IX is the only one who is not some form of human, being a Celestian, an angelic being watching over people, though he does later become human. The hero of Dragon Quest X loses his body near the start of the game, leaving you to possess the bodies of other deceased characters. That feels very reminiscent of Majora's Mask. The Luminary, or 11, was the first to make the jump to the Smash Bros. Series, though he did bring Erdrick solo in 8 along with him. Multiple party members or side characters went on to lead their own spin-off titles. Torneko from Dragon Quest IV leads the most spin-off titles with 3 games under his belt so far. Terry was the first to later appear as a child in his own game in Dragon Quest Monsters, but this also later happened to Yangus from 8 and Eric from 11, a fun little trend. And Zaro from Dragon Quest IV kept showing up as a playable character in other games before finally getting his own title with Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. Did you know that Terry would go from hero to villain in the same series, albeit taking his turn to the antagonistic side in the manga Dragon Quest Monsters Plus? There are other heroes in some of the games besides the player character. In Dragon Quest XI, there's the original luminary Erdwin from the Ages of Heroes. And some people might disagree with me here, but I feel like Mervyn from Dragon Quest VII fits a similar role, being a servant of the Almighty that followed him into the final battle, and is directly referred to as a legendary hero. It might not be as explicit as Erdwin, but I consider him the other hero of Dragon Quest VII. Alright, we're getting near the end here, so let's dive back into some of the more interesting lore throughout the series. Dragon Quest XI opened up the possibility of explaining the different worlds of some of the games being due to a timeline split. Without getting too deep into spoilers, there are technically different timeline splits caused by events in the game, and there are various fan theories using these splits to explain how games like the Zenithian trilogy might happen in a different timeline from, say, the Erdrick games. But nothing is official yet, and we need a few more connective threads before we know if this theory holds water. There's a strange connection between Japang from Dragon Quest III, the Kingdom of Mu from Mark of Erdrick, Erdrea from 11, and the World of Spirits from the Mark of Rubis. Japang is mentioned to have been founded by survivors of the destruction of the Kingdom of Mu, referred to in the Mark of Erdrick, and is directly stated of Rubis that she established the Empire of Mu herself after the events of that story. But Hato in 11 also seems to have a connection to Japang, as the people in both worlds speak in haiku. But Rubis is not present in that game. Establishing which events come first, the Legend of Rubis or 11, might be a clue in unraveling the timeline. Perhaps the events of 11 took place before the ascension of Rubis to goddess. The HD2D remakes added extra lore to firmly establish the lineage of Dragon Queen down to Dragon Lord and then his grandson. It may seem a small thing, but this clears the way for additional connections to potentially be drawn later between the Yig Dragon introduced in 11 and the Zenith Dragon from the Zenithian trilogy. If these connections are made in upcoming games, it could really clarify the hierarchy of divine and heavenly beings. On the flip side, the dark forces of the various Dragon Quest games also seem to be growing more interconnected with each passing release, with the HD2D trilogy revealing that Zoma, the Dragon Lord, and Hargon all seem to have been influenced by the corruption of a more powerful dark entity you face at the end of 2. Without going into spoilers, the final boss of 2 also has some connections to the uber bosses of 11 and 8. It appears that all of the villains could be revealed to be the puppet of one ultimate reincarnating dark force similar to Ganon and Zelda. While not official canon as far as I can tell, the manga for Dragon Quest VII implies that Kiefer was a descendant of the Prince of Maidenhall from Dragon Quest II, and the remake of 2 seemed to set up a possible way for that to be made canon. But then strangely, that was not addressed at all in 7 Reimagined. What do you think? Is this a canon connection or not? The new Dragon Quest HD2D trilogy also set up possible connections to the Zenithian trilogy, and strangely, 8. Could this be a tease of new remakes of those games, the same way Dragon Quest XI's ending teased remakes of 1 through 3? Did you know that one of the strangest and most interesting of the many remakes of Dragon Quest I is a plug-and-play TV game called Kenshin Dragon Quest? And Sandville did an amazing video covering every little detail about it. I highly recommend it. Another fun fact, despite never being made, you may have already met the hero of Dragon Quest Builders 3. Based on the natures of the games, each being a spin-off from the same numbered game from the original trilogy, Dragon Quest Builders 3 likely would have followed a legendary builder of old set after the events of Dragon Quest III, and this builder was the Hammerhood spirit who guided you in 2. Did you also know the famous Dragon Quest line, "I'm not a bad slime," was referenced in That Time I Reincarnated as a Slime? Prince Maidenhall can learn the Puff Puff and Power Puff Puff spells for some reason. You can wield 2 swords of light at once in Dragon Quest XI. You also may have seen a red sword of light floating around on the internet. Originally, this was from the Mark of Erdrick manga, but it became official canon to the world of Dragon Quest in Dragon Quest II HD2D, and it may itself prove to be reforged into the Ramia sword from Dragon Quest VI if a remake is announced, which would be an incredible way to finally connect these worlds. Dragon Quest will be celebrating its 40th anniversary on Dragon Quest Day, or May 27th of this year, and we are likely to get some very exciting announcements. Yuji Horii recently celebrated his 72nd birthday with a large Dragon Quest shebang, but he has already stated that one of his main goals right now is seeing Dragon Quest turn 50 and celebrating it with everyone. We wish him good health and many years to that end. And here we are at the final round. Just 12 more to go, one for each mainline Dragon Quest entry. Let's see how many we can do about 12 before we run out. Dragon Quest XII was formally announced on Dragon Quest Day of the 35th anniversary. It has been in active development for nearly 5 years now. Hexadrive, who handled the 7 reimagining, has been co-developing it alongside Square Enix and Orca. 4 Dragon Quest remakes have been released since its announcement. Its official title is Flames of Fate. The game is intended to be darker, with Hori himself stating the game is mostly aimed at adult fans of the series. The game faced difficulties in development, and in April 2024, the Dragon Quest series producer stepped down because of the game's delays. Hori himself expressed some concern about the game on Twitter in 2024 that he was worried about the game because of Toriyama and Sugiyama's passing. But nevertheless, he said he would do his best without them, and has seemed far more positive about the game in recent interviews. This is now the longest gap between mainline entries, surpassing the previous gap of 8 years between Dragon Quest VIII and IX. There have been recent leaks about the game that can't currently be verified and seem likely false due to some of their content. But 2 interesting details that would be cool to see if they somehow end up being true is that the game will connect to the Celestian timeline, and that the character will be a female hero this time around. This could be very interesting, but sadly, it's unlikely to be true. And the final thing you should know is that despite setbacks, the future of Dragon Quest is looking very bright. With 3 titles and 4 remakes in the last 2 years, positive updates about 12 and the 40th anniversary celebration, and a keen desire by Square to continue to expand Dragon Quest overseas, it should be another good year for Dragon Quest fans, after a long dry spell and a rocky history of localization efforts. And if you love Dragon Quest and you want to see it get even more popular here, support the new releases, grab the Mark of Erdrick series, which is really good by the way, and support Dragon Quest channels like this one and the ones we mentioned in this video. Every time you like a video, comment, share, and tell people about it, you increase the reach of Dragon Quest and can help it reach new audiences who still aren't aware of this great series. Support each other and engage with each other, and make this a community people want to be a part of and learn more about. Dragon Quest's uniquely rocky history overseas means it needs more help from people like us than anything, and word of mouth is the best tool for growing awareness. So subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on X and Instagram, and share your love of the series with us. Every time you do, it boosts the reach of what you love, and we want to help and support you guys too. So if you make content about Dragon Quest, share it with us. And if you have something cool you made, or a really cool piece of merch in your collection, share it with us on our socials. We might feature it at the end of our videos here in our community corner. Speaking of which, here's a collection of DQ merch sent to us by a friend of the channel. And here's a great series of cinematic retellings of various Dragon Quest stories that are incredibly well made and are not getting the attention they deserve. Show this channel a little love and subscribe if you like what he's doing, because it's amazing work. Thank you all for all the support, and let us know your own interesting facts about Dragon Quest that you think people would enjoy in the comments. And maybe we'll do another one of these in the future with fan-submitted facts. Until next time.